Robert Mugabe became the first Prime Minister of Zimbabwe on April 18, 1980. That was the same day Zimbabwe became independent. Anyways, Zimbabwe was formerly known as Southern Rhodesia, and that same day, 1980, April 18, the name changed from Southern Rhodesia to Zimbabwe, the Republic of Zimbabwe. So, in 1987, Robert Mugabe became the second president, which means that he shifted from being a prime minister and he became a president, and he was the second president of Zimbabwe. That was in 1987. He replaced Canaan Banana, which was the first president of Zimbabwe. So, who exactly was Robert Mugabe? Robert Mugabe was one of the leading nationalists, one of the leading figures in the fight against colonial rule and against white minority rule in Zimbabwe. Robert Mugabe was very influential in the fight against colonial rule, the British colonial rule in Zimbabwe, and he also fought against the white minority rule in Zimbabwe. In fact, his activism, it landed him in prison. He was in prison for about 10 years from 1964 to 1974. But while he was still in prison, his influence grew stronger, which means he was still being aired from the prison. He was still fighting for independence and all of that, even from the prison. He was behind the bars, but he was still doing so much for his country. So when Robert Mugabe became the first prime minister of Zimbabwe, and when he also became the president, so the early years of his leadership were very good, which means the people supported him, they liked him because he did some very good things, such as expounding the healthcare sector, the educational sector. Everything was balanced, everything was nice, until it got to a point over the years while he was still leading, his rule became controversial, especially for the land reform policies that he introduced. So it really brought hardship, economic breakdown, and some negative things like that. So in 2017, Robert Mugabe was forced to resign because he had been leading the country, Zimbabwe, from 1980 down to 2017, 37 years in power. He was forced to resign because of the policies that he brought about that were controversial. So he resigned in 2017, and finally, September 6, 2019, Robert Mugabe died in Singapore. He was 95 years old when he died. So that is that about Robert Mugabe, the first prime minister of Zimbabwe. At the same time, he was also a president. Anyways, he was the second president of Zimbabwe, replacing Canaan Banana. Thank you.